Now let's have a look at the feet. If I grab the right foot in there, my rule of thumb for animating locomotion is that if a foot is on a contact, even partial, I want to keep the foot controller flat on the floor, at least at the beginning, and use the foot roll attribute instead. That makes it super easy, you see, to animate the foot rolling down, so I'm just going to do it that way. And maybe if I feel fancy, I will use the toe wiggle control to flip the tip up a little bit. You see that as I use the foot roll, the leg bends, which means I can maybe lift the root a little bit more, you see, and still get a nice extended pose in there. Not too bad, that's looking quite alright. Now I want to store the pose by selecting all controllers, and on frame 1, hit S like star on your keyboard. That jots down a keyframe. You see there's a vertical red line in there. So now we want to find the opposite contact. And you see that the opposite contact pose is pretty much the opposite of the first contact pose. There is a variation in this area of the screen for the arms, and we will look into it. That depends on the context of the shot, of course. We won't be able to do many variations in this tutorial, really. Back into Maya then, I need to mirror that pose. So first of all, let's find that pose. So I will scrap the timeline. I don't need a timeline this long anymore. I think the run will use the maximum of about 20 frames, 22 frames, but nothing more than that. So in here, you see that the character moves outside the screen, so I was a bit too ambitious when moving the image plane around, so I'm going to go and grab the offset and maybe scale back the character and move it back a little bit. So again, let's select all controllers and let's find the frame. On frame 8, we have our contact pose in there. It's the opposite contact pose. In terms of 3D animation, this will be a mirrored version of the previous contact pose. So I imagine that by opening up Red 9 Animation Toolkit and scroll down until I find Mirror Pose, I imagine that I should be able to mirror this pose, which it seems like I am able to do. Nice and free of charge, not bad. You will now notice that the character we're using as a reference doesn't have exactly the same poses on one contact and on the other. That's because, of course, of the variations that the animator introduced in the shot. Right now we are focused on producing a locomotion loop, so we will just try to find a compromise.